Good morning, YouTube. Warbles on a lot here on Father's Day for what I hope to be the first dog on the moon.
Soon. We saw that Turnbull, that is his natural inclination. He does want to go to the centre, but he just can't. And then we had, Maxine, we had that interesting moment this week of Pauline Hanson and Tony Abbott having a couple of flat whites together.
Truly disturbing viewing.
Well, it's interesting though. It goes to where the politics in this country have shifted, and there is that sense of privilege grievance that gives rise to something like One Nation and Pauline
Yeah,
Hanson.
I think we have a short political memory, and we tend to forget that Hanson is a monster of the Liberals' making. You know that she rode in on a Liberal ticket, and okay, they abandoned her, back in the mid-90s, but essentially she was part of their of their ticket initially. And, despite, everything that's gone on between Abbott and Hanson, for them to essentially reconcile.
What's that conversation like? So, Pauline, how was jail? Sorry about that. My bad. I like the tear duct tat there, Pauline. Particularly you got it. I mean, Stephen, this is where Australian politics and American politics have this sort of area of similarity, isn't it?
Hijacked by the right.
Well, hijacked by the right and hijacked by a group of people uh, afraid of losing privilege and an advantage in society, basically.
What's the expression? If if you've had privilege so long, equality feels like oppression.
Yeah.
Did I get it right?
I think that's we know what you're saying.
You know what I mean? That.
I mean, that to me feels like the thing which is really sort of wagging the dog in politics at the moment. That sense. Does it feel that way, Maxine? Do you? I mean, is there a truth in that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not surprised by the fact that, the right Liberal are aligning themselves with, with One Nation, with Pauline Hanson, and with those kinds of politics, because, to be honest, it's not that much of a stretch. It's not that much of a bridge for them to walk over. I think that the right has moved so far to the right that,
But what I don't understand is how that sort of a grievance attitude doesn't fit with reform of negative gearing. Well, I mean, this is Trump rode in on all this economic dissatisfaction, and you think that there's still people with views that I might not necessarily agree with, who would still find negative gearing to be something that's in need of reform.
It is the leaf litter of disconnection, which is Australian politics. But Sam, we have no time. I'm sorry. I've moved the gag. It's cruel, but it's fair. we do have no more time for our outsiders this morning. They mean Sam Crosby, cut off there in his prime, Executive Director of McKell Institute, author of The Trust Deficit, Stephen Amsterdam, new book, The Easy Way Out. Maxine Clark, new book to The Hate Race. Catch them at the Melbourne or Brisbane Writers Festival. They will be there, and that's it for Sunday Extra for this week. Now, our pod.
Well, yeah, interesting that there was no mention of a Labor Party minister called Sam Dastyari, something like that. Anyway, this Labor Party senator, I think he is, Dastyari, he was deeply in the shit all week because for some reason he owed the Australian Commonwealth government $1,600 for travel expenses, and instead of paying it out of his own pocket as he probably should have done, he organised somehow mysteriously for a Chinese businessman who works for a company that's more or less wholly owned by the Chinese government to pay the Labor senator's travel expenses of $1,600. And subsequent to that, at about the same time as that was going on, this particular Chinese businessman managed to get himself photographed with Malcolm Turnbull, with Tony Abbott, Barnaby Joyce, a whole bunch of politicians at a high level right across the political spectrum. Liberal Party, Labor Party, National Party. But as a special cherry on top, he paid $1,600 worth of travel expenses back to the federal government for a Labor Party senator. Right. Roll that forward a little bit. And there's been increasing shit fightiness between Uncle Spam and the People's Republic of China over the South China Sea. You know, I mean, they don't call it the fucking West American Ocean, they call it the South China Sea. So you'd think everybody would accept the fact that the Chinese get to decide what happens in the South China Sea. And if you particularly want to put a lot of your tankers full of oil through it because it's cheaper to go that way than to go the long way around, you're just going to have to pay whatever tariff they want to charge or otherwise jump through their hoops because that's their bit of ocean. They've got a huge coastline around that bit of ocean. Their logistical military supply line to generate nastiness over the South China Sea is a lot shorter than America's statistical logistical pipeline to try and project nastiness into that area. So I think it was the Philippines took China to the World Court arguing over the South China Sea, and the World Court said that the Chinese have no actual case to claim that they own the South China Sea. They've got to share it with everybody, and they're not allowed to build sand islands on tidal rocks that were already awash at high tide before global warming started to raise the sea level. So what the fuck would you want to fight over that for? But people keep talking about fishing resources, you know, so they want to catch the last fish in the ocean because they've already got rid of all the other ones. And America's backing the Filipinos' claim, and Australia's backing the Americans to back the Filipinos' claim. And at the moment, the Filipinos have elected a complete fucking lunatic, psychopathic, murderous gangster who actually campaigned on a platform of killing drug users and killing drug dealers. He's been in power for 3 months and he's killed about 2,000 of them, and he's told their army that it's okay to kill drug users because they're not actually human. His name is Dirty Dirty. Presidente Dirty Dirty. Dirty Dirty, yeah. So, of course, the Filipino citizenry have risen up and started putting bombs in the bastard's hometown. So, yeah, the Philippines is going down the same road that Iraq and Syria have gone down, I predict. American client satellite states with corrupt crony capitalist puppet regimes. Fucking horrible places. So anyway, this Sam Dastyari, the Labor senator who accepted $1,600 worth of cash favouritism from a Chinese government wholly owned businessman, he suddenly got up on his hind legs and started making really sensible noises about the South China Sea, about how Australia should decouple from America's military expeditionaryism and start thinking about its economic ties with China because they're our biggest customer for coal and iron ore and wheat, all sorts of shit. And everybody raised their eyebrows when this Labor Party senator broke ranks with the bipartisan kumbaya love fest that the Liberal Party and the Labor Party and the National Party regard the ANZUS Treaty. Whatever America wants to do, Australia is duty bound to agree with it, to support it, to sense by playing with a Ouija board what America might be going to do in the future, and we rush in, and we are the first country on the spot. You know, like we volunteered for the coalition of the killing before anybody else did. Back in George H.W. Bush's war against Iraq in Kuwait, we volunteered first. We volunteered in Afghanistan first. We were in Vietnam before bloody Americans were in Vietnam with the Australian Army Advisor Team. We're very, very keen on being America's attack chihuahua kind of thing. All in favour and all in defence of the ANZUS Treaty, which is supposed to save Australia from the yellow peril threatening us from Indonesia. However, when the yellow peril was, you know, technically threatening us from Indonesia, America and Uncle Spam decided that 400 million Indonesians can drink more fucking Coca-Cola and eat more KFC and more McDonald's than, well, back then there were probably only 11 million Australians. But even now there's 26 million Australians. The Indonesians can still consume more American shit than we can. So America's never, ever going to fight on Australia's side against Indonesia, which is why we've been plugging away all over the world in support of ANZUS. So Dostoevsky was making pretty good sense, I thought, when he said, you know, if America wants to fight with China, Australia should sit on the fucking sidelines and watch. Otherwise, we are going to get hammered. Well, then, subsequent to that, the news emerged that Dostoevsky had been receiving financial favours from the Chinese, and the question has been raised by Malcolm Turning Bull, who lost control of the fucking parliament because of the Liberal National Party's born to rule mindset. They believe that it is their heritage to sit in government, that the Labor Party doesn't deserve to even think about it. So therefore, they've won the election. They've got a parliamentary majority of one. So about 3 or 4 of the stupid bastards decided that they were going to knock off early because they had an early flight to catch and they couldn't actually stay the last 20 minutes. Yep. And that story that Turnbull has lost control of the parliament and Pauline Hanson has decided to kiss and make up with Tony Abbott, who put her in jail for electoral fraud. They are the 2 biggest stories of the week, not the fact that one of the Labor Party very, very much looks as if he's kind of sold out to the Chinese, because, I mean, he admitted that he'd done the wrong thing when he confessed it all after thinking about what a dickhead he'd been, all except the cash for comment angle. He admitted that he shouldn't have taken that $1,600 donation, not paid to him, but paid to the federal government. So he's personally made a $1,600 donation to an unnamed charity to try and set the record straight, settle the books. Yeah. Meanwhile, every bloody bishop and priest in the Anglican and Catholic Church in the Hunter River Valley seems to have been covering up pedophiles from the 1970s to about maybe the late 1990s. Maybe they didn't stop till the mid-2005 era. Royal Commissions have been showing some really nasty stuff. And, yeah, in Kalgoorlie there were race riots because the police charged a white driver with manslaughter for running over a 14-year-old Aborigine. And that's kind of the straw that broke the camel's back as far as the Indigenous population in Western Australia is concerned. So that sort of meshes pretty well with the tear gassing of teenagers and tying them up in restraint chairs, pulling hoods over their heads like Abu Ghraib in Northern Territory. Queensland's been busted this week for doing the same sort of stuff, tying teenagers in detention up in chairs, restraint chairs. So, yeah, life in the fascist Republic of Australia is not going very well these days for the city Zenri. Not very well at all. On the bright side, we're getting we've had a very wet end to winter. I don't know what spring's going to be like, but my driveway is a mud pie suffering liquefaction of the subsoil. Dams are full, tanks are full, gullies are running. Yeah, life's pretty interesting. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. Glen Innes Art Gallery had a painting. I'll show it to you. The painting is of a naked man sitting in front of a naked teapot beside a naked window looking out at a naked landscape. And this made the front page because some raw prawn with a cooked head actually went and complained to the police, and the police came and looked at the painting and they decided it had to be moved because, you know, like it couldn't be up the front of the gallery in case a child saw it and was frightened. Art gallery volunteer Beryl Ramsey said a group of 60 to 80-year-old ladies came through recently and loved the painting. Their only complaint was that they couldn't lift the teapot to see what was behind it, she said. Dennis McIntyre, the artist. The unmovable teapot. And perhaps, possibly because once upon a time I used to have about 18 articles or 18 letters to the editor printed in the paper when she was little. Art gallery volunteer Beryl Ramsey said a group of 60 to 80-year-old ladies came through recently and loved the painting. Their only complaint was they couldn't lift the teapot to see what was behind it, she said. Old Ladies Are the Best by Elizabeth Wharton via Facebook. Their format has changed, but I have a collection of letters pages comprising my published works in the Glen Innes Examiner. So I regard This apple falling not far from the tree as a very interesting Father's Day present. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao. Ah.